Once upon a folktale, a man named Ayo stepped off the interstate bus, the humid Lagos air replaced by the slightly cooler yet still thick embrace of Ile-Igbo. The city, though not as sprawling as Lagos, hummed with its own unique rhythm, a symphony of distant market cries, the rumble of ancient generators, and the incessant chatter of a thousand conversations. He clutched his worn backpack, a nervous excitement fluttering in his chest. This was it. His new beginning. A fresh start, far from the suffocating expectations of his family and the relentless pace of the megacity. His new job, a promising role in a burgeoning tech firm, was his ticket to independence. He found his apartment with relative ease, a modest two-bedroom flat tucked away on a quiet street, surprisingly affordable for its proximity to the city center. The only peculiarity was its view, a large murky pond, its surface often obscured by a thin film of green algae and the occasional discarded plastic bottle. It wasn't picturesque, but it was peaceful, a stark contrast to the concrete jungle he'd left behind. He unpacked, set up his small space, and for the first few days, life in Ile-Igbo was a pleasant blur of new routines, new colleagues, and the quiet satisfaction of building something for himself. Yet, as the initial novelty wore off, subtle disquiet began to creep in. It started small, almost imperceptible, a faint, almost musical whisper carried on the breeze from the direction of the pond, even when there was no wind. He dismissed it as the rustling of leaves or the distant murmur of traffic. Then came the shadows, fleeting peripheral blurs that danced at the edge of his vision, especially when he glanced towards the pond at dusk. He'd blink and they'd be gone, leaving him to wonder if his eyes were playing tricks on him after a long hour staring at a computer screen. A pervasive sense of unease, like a cold finger tracing his spine, would often settle upon him when he was alone in his apartment, a feeling he couldn't shake despite the warmth of the afternoon sun. One sweltering afternoon, as Ayo was returning from work, he noticed an elderly woman sitting on a low stool outside our compound, her eyes, ancient and knowing, fixed on him. She was Mama Bisi, a respected elder in the community, known for her sharp wit and her deep connection to the old ways. As he approached, she beckoned him closer with a gnarled hand. "Young man," she said, her voice a low rasp, "you live too close to the water. The spirits of the deep do not take kindly to trespassers, especially those who forget the old ways." Ayo, ever polite, smiled and nodded, attributing her words to the quaint superstitions of the elderly. "Thank you, Mama," he replied, "but I assure you, I mean no harm to anyone, spirits or otherwise." He continued on his way, dismissing her words as harmless folklore, a relic of a bygone era. He shared the encounter with Kunle, his new colleague, and quickly becoming a good friend. During their lunch break the next day, Kunle, a boisterous man with a hearty laugh, chuckled. "Ah, Mama Bisi, she means well, but she's from a different time. Don't mind her. The only spirits around here are the ones in the local palm wine." Kunle's easy dismissal further cemented Ayo's belief that his unease was simply a product of his own overactive imagination, perhaps a side effect of adjusting to a new environment. But the whispers persisted, growing bolder, more distinct. They seemed to call his name, a soft melodic murmur that would rise and fall with the evening breeze. He found himself drawn to the pond, a strange, almost hypnotic pull. One evening, working late on a presentation, the office building eerily quiet, a particularly captivating melody drifted through his open window. It was hauntingly beautiful, melancholic yet alluring, unlike any music he had ever heard. It seemed to emanate directly from the murky depths of the pond, Curiosity, a dangerous companion, tugged at him. He pushed away from his desk, the presentation forgotten, and walked towards the window, then out of his apartment building, drawn by the siren song. He found himself at the water's edge, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and stagnant water. The song was louder here, clearer, weaving itself around him, pulling him closer. He peered into the darkness, trying to discern the source of the melody, and then he saw it. Just beneath the surface, a shimmering figure, indistinct yet undeniably present. Its eyes, 2 points of incandescent light, glowed faintly in the gloom, fixed on him. A cold dread, unlike anything he had ever known, seized him, yet he felt an irresistible pull, a desperate urge to step into the water, to join the shimmering entity in its watery embrace. The song swelled, filling his ears, drowning out all other thoughts, all other instincts. He took a step forward, then another, his feet sinking slightly into the soft, muddy bank. Ayo awoke with a gasp, his heart hammering against his ribs. He was in his bed, drenched in sweat, the haunting melody still echoing in his ears. The shimmering figure, the glowing eyes, the irresistible pull. It had all been a dream, a vivid, terrifying nightmare. He tried to rationalize it, to dismiss it as a product of stress and Mama Bisi's unsettling warnings. But the lingering sense of dread, the feeling of something unseen watching him, refused to dissipate. The incidents, initially subtle, began to escalate. He'd leave his keys on the table, only to find them on his bookshelf. His favorite mug, left by the sink, would mysteriously appear on his bedside table. Small, insignificant things, but enough to chip away at his composure. The whispers, too, grew more insistent, sometimes sounding like his own name, sometimes like a mournful wail. He'd spin around, convinced someone was behind him, only to find an empty room. Sleep became a luxury, plagued by vivid, disturbing dreams. In these dreams, he was always near the pond, the water dark and inviting, and the shadowy female figure, now clearer, her face obscured by long flowing hair, would beckon him closer, her voice a chilling lullaby. One afternoon, Kunle came over to help Ayo with a particularly complex project. As they walked, a sudden, inexplicable chill filled the room, despite the oppressive heat outside. A stack of papers on Ayo's desk, untouched by any breeze, slid slowly to the floor. Kunle, who had been laughing moments before, went silent, his eyes wide. "Did you see that?" he whispered, his usual jovial demeanor replaced by a look of genuine fear. Ayo nodded, a cold knot forming in his stomach. This was no longer his imagination. Kunle, the staunch skeptic, was now a believer. Now truly desperate, Ayo sought out Mama Bisi. He found her in her usual spot, her gaze as piercing as ever. He recounted everything, the whispers, the moving objects, the terrifying dreams, and Kunle's recent experience. Mama Bisi listened patiently, her expression grave. "The Iya-Omi," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The water spirit, she is angered. The pond, it was once a sacred place, a source of life, but men have defiled it with their waste, their neglect. She seeks to reclaim what is hers, and she preys on those who are lost, those who disrespect the balance." Ayo shivered. "But why me, Mama? I have done nothing to disrespect her." Mama Bisi's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps not intentionally, my son, but ambition, unchecked, can be a form of disrespect, and your proximity to her domain, your very presence, has drawn her attention. She sees a vulnerability, a path to strengthen herself." Mama Bisi then explained that the Iya-Omi's power was growing, fueled by the neglect and pollution of the pond. She needed to be appeased or she would continue to claim souls. She gave Ayo a small, intricately carved wooden figurine and a pouch of dried herbs. Go to the pond at midnight, she instructed. Place the figurine at the water's edge, sprinkle the herbs, and speak these words. She recited a short, ancient incantation. It is a small offering, a sign of respect. It may calm her for a time. Ayo, though terrified, felt a flicker of hope. He would do anything to make it stop. That night, under the cloak of a moonless sky, Ayo made his way to the pond. The air was heavy, the silence oppressive, broken only by the croaking of frogs. He found the spot Mama Bisi had described, a small clearing near a gnarled old tree. His hands trembled as he placed the figurine on the muddy bank and sprinkled the fragrant herbs. He took a deep breath and began to recite the incantation, his voice a shaky whisper. As the last word left his lips, the water in the pond, previously still and dark, began to churn violently. A low, guttural growl emanated from the depths, and the surface of the water rippled with an unnatural force. Then, slowly, a hand, long and pale, with slender, almost translucent fingers, rose from the murky water. It reached out, not towards the figurine, but directly towards Ayo, its grasp unerringly seeking his ankle. He froze, paralyzed by terror, as the cold, clammy fingers closed around his skin, pulling him towards the dark, swirling depths. Ayo screamed, a raw, primal sound that tore through the night. The icy grip on his ankle tightened, pulling him inexorably towards the churning water. With a surge of adrenaline, he kicked wildly, his foot connecting with something surprisingly solid beneath the surface. The grip loosened, and he scrambled backward, away from the water's edge, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs. He didn't stop running until he burst through his apartment door, gasping for breath. The image of that pale, grasping hand seared into his mind. He was no longer merely frightened, he was in mortal danger. The next morning, pale and shaken, Ayo returned to Mama Bisi. She listened to his frantic account, her face etched with concern. The Iya-Omi grows stronger, she murmured, her gaze distant. The neglect, the pollution, it feeds her. She seeks not just appeasement, but a reckoning. She will not rest until the balance is restored, or she has claimed all that she desires. Mama Bisi explained that the small ritual was merely a test, a way to gauge the spirit's intent. Now, a more potent intervention was required. Her power is tied to the purity of the water and the respect shown to it. To truly appease her, the source of her anger must be addressed. It will require a sacrifice, not of blood, but of understanding and perhaps of ambition. Kunle, now fully committed to helping Ayo, joined them. He had seen enough to shed his skepticism. "What do we do, Mama?" he asked, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. Mama Bisi outlined a plan. It involved a deeper ritual, one that required not just offerings, but a symbolic cleansing of the pond itself and a confrontation with the spirit on her own terms. This was not about banishing her, but about understanding her pain and restoring a lost harmony. It would be dangerous, for the Iya-Omi was a powerful entity, and her anger was deep-seated. Over the next few days, Ayo and Kunle worked tirelessly. They gathered specific herbs, rare earth, and a special clay from a hidden spring Mama Bisi directed them to. They spent hours cleaning a small section of the pond's edge, removing debris and plastic, a small act of reverence. As they walked, Ayo felt a strange connection to the water, a faint echo of the spirit's sorrow. He realized the Iya-Omi wasn't inherently evil, but a guardian corrupted by human disregard. The whispers he had heard were not just malevolent calls, but cries of anguish. On the night of the ritual, the air was charged with an almost palpable energy. Ayo, guided by Mama Bisi, stood at the cleansed edge of the pond. Kunle stood by, a silent, supportive presence. Ayo began the intricate ritual, his movements precise, his voice steady as he chanted the ancient words Mama Bisi had taught him. He poured the spring water into the pond, mixed the clay and herbs into the mud, and offered a heartfelt apology, not just for his own unwitting disrespect, but for the collective neglect of humanity. As he spoke, the murky water began to clear, slowly at first, then with increasing speed, revealing glimpses of the sandy bottom. The low growl that had emanated from the depths transformed into a soft, mournful hum. Then, the climax. A shimmering form rose from the now clear water, not the terrifying grasping hand, but a figure of ethereal beauty, her eyes no longer glowing with malevolence, but with a profound sadness. It was the Iya-Omi, her form fluid, made of water and moonlight. She did not speak with words, but with a presence that filled Ayo's mind. He understood her pain, her loneliness, her desperate plea for respect. This was not a battle of strength, but a communion of understanding. Ayo, instead of fighting, extended his hand, not in defiance but in an offering of peace, a promise of stewardship. The Iya-Omi mirrored his gesture, her watery hand briefly touching his, a cold yet comforting sensation. The ritual concluded. The Iya-Omi's form dissolved back into the now pristine water. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by a serene calm. Ayo felt a profound sense of peace, a quiet triumph. The whispers were gone, replaced by the gentle lapping of water against the shore. He had faced his fear, understood the spirit, and perhaps found a new purpose. He turned to Kunle, a smile of relief on his face. As they walked away from the pond, the first rays of dawn painting the sky, Ayo glanced down at his hand. There, on his palm, was a small, almost invisible mark, like a single iridescent scale. It shimmered faintly in the growing light, a subtle, beautiful reminder of his encounter. And then, carried on the gentle morning breeze, he heard it. A faint, almost imperceptible whisper, not of malice, but of gratitude. A promise of continued vigilance, a gentle reminder that the balance, once disturbed, always requires tending. The Iya-Omi was not gone. She was simply at peace, and a part of her, a tiny shimmering fragment, now resided within him, a silent guardian of the waters and of his own soul. The city of Ile-Igbo, with its modern aspirations, now held a deeper ancient secret, a testament to the enduring power of respect for the unseen world. And Ayo, the ambitious young man, had learned that true progress lay not in conquering nature, but in living in harmony with it. For the whispers of the past, though subtle, always held profound truths. Thank you for staying till the end of this story. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to encourage us bring you more exciting stories. Until our next episode, keep your environment clean.